post it on YouTube and get it out there for others to see. So with that being said, I will eliminate this. I will go to large screen. And Jeff, you can take it away.
Thanks, Ted. And thanks to everybody who's there. I'm sorry I can't see you in person and all that stuff, but hopefully soon. My name is Jeff Wood. I'm an architect with the University of Colorado at Denver. We have a program called the University Technical Assistance Program, which is funded by the Department of Local Affairs, affectionately known as DOLA. And through their generous grant, we are allowed to bring design services and stuff to outlying and rural communities that might benefit from our perspective. I am ably assisted by Ivy Steele and Elena Gagna, who are both landscape architecture students at UC Denver. Our DOLA manager for this area is Greg Winkler. I wanted to thank him as well. And I just wanted to, we presented something, the early versions of this probably about a year ago, maybe a little bit more. And at the time, the emphasis seemed to be on beautification and bike lanes and making the street more pedestrian and biker friendly. And we've hopefully taken everything to another level. Highway 40 through Granby is known as Agate Avenue, and that's Granby's main street. And we'd like to make it more like a main street, serving the community rather than just being a highway through town that most drivers see only from the windshield of their car. We want them to slow down, maybe even pull over, have a bite to eat or a cup of coffee, and enjoy all that Granby has to offer. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my team, and we're going to take you through a couple of video presentations of the work that we prepared. So Ted, if you hit the play, we're all on our way.
And I do apologize, the sound quality isn't great. Another COVID-19 Zoom issue, but we're trying.
Hello, my name is Elena Gagna, one of the landscape architecture students re-envisioning Granby's downtown streetscape. We were tasked with reimagining a walkable, attractive, and pedestrian-focused downtown street with amenities for pedestrians and cyclists. To start out, we show here the context of a potential bike network extending from Fraser through Granby's downtown and on towards the hot Sulphur Springs or campgrounds to the north. Granby could become a connection and hub for the local bike travel and recreation. We've next outlined several options to prioritize safety and access for bicycle routes, slowing vehicular traffic and bringing businesses and interest into downtown. The first slide shows the bike lanes following Agate Avenue through the existing downtown Main Street. Our next option demonstrates routing the bike south of the railroad tracks, crossing by Zero Street to reconnect with traffic. Next, we show bike lanes along Jasper Avenue with spurs to connect with Agate Ave. This would provide more real estate for the Main Street improvements, including a vegetated buffer and enhanced sidewalks. Here we've outlined options for left turns as you head east along Agate. To help calm traffic and bring people into downtown, we are suggesting a vegetated median as a buffer and lane separation. To maximize vegetated space, we're suggesting maintaining 2 lanes heading east and 1 heading west along this section, and removing some of the left turning lanes. This option suggests less turns at 0 and 2nd Street. Next, we are showing left turns on 0 and 1st, left turns at every intersection, and finally, a left or U-turn at 0 Street only. Here we've investigated streetscape options in cross-section. The top diagram represents the existing conditions of 76 feet of asphalt, including 4 travel lanes, 1 turning center strip, and parking at both the north and the south. Our diagram shows removing 1 lane in the column on the left and 2 with the column on the right. Then the top row shows adding bike lanes on Agate, or rerouting bikes on the 2nd row to Jasper, and keeping Agate focused on pedestrians. Next, we have a series of vignettes representing these proposed changes. The first is of the existing condition looking east. This shows the eastbound lane removed, center median vegetated, and sidewalks widened without adding bike lanes, with the accompanying vignettes showing just the cars and pedestrians having the bike lanes on Jasper. This next section adds bike lanes on both the north and the south with the same one lane eastbound removed. And similarly, a vignette and another proposed buffer idea. Lastly, we show here the bike lanes moved to the south side only, with cyclists travel headed in both east and west directions. And that vignette for demonstration with a painted buffer between the traffic lanes and the cyclists. Another technique for calming traffic and enriching downtown streetscapes are bulb outs. They can extend vegetation and provide safer crossing for pedestrians. Here represents 3 options for agate intersections: more permanent vegetated swales, removable extensions, and painted bulb outs. There are several options to deal with draining and freezing issues in Granby's extreme climate. One approach is green infrastructure, which directs stormwater to infiltrate vegetation in order to capture sediment and slow down runoff. This could be introduced in a median and sidewalk, stormwater planters, and curb extensions. These green infrastructure solutions have been proven to be successful in cold climates such as Granby's and can provide one option for runoff capture. Other options include traditional drains and gutters and cutouts as standalone or in combination with some of these enhancements. Bulb outs can be a wonderful option to extend seating into some of the downtown parking, providing removable or permanent parks within the streetscape. Other furnishings we've including that enhance the downtown streetscape include bike racks, planter boxes, buck fences, and seating. Lastly, a few Colorado examples demonstrate local initiatives around the state. Granby can have the next livable, walkable, and approachable downtown with amenities for pedestrians and cyclists. Thank you.
Granby's Agate Ave has so many of the ingredients that make a great street. Here, there's a palpable sense of history and growth, a strong local business presence, public art, mature street trees, and panoramic vistas to the Rocky Mountains. We at CCCD also recognize that there are opportunities for Granby's Main Street to improve and serve its community better. For instance, what if Granby's Main Street was greener, supported multimodal transportation, and felt truly safe and inclusive for people of all ages and abilities to experience? Today, we present to you 3 concepts showing how Agate could be retrofitted and redesigned over time to provide amenities that better serve the safety, health, and economic interests of Granby. The concepts we have prepared are intended to represent an a la carte menu of thoroughly researched design interventions that your community may or may not consider adopting over time. Some of the proposed interventions include showing what it would look like if traffic was maintained to 2 westbound lanes and reduced to 1 eastbound lane on Agate. Installing vegetated curb extensions on the north side of the street and new and enhanced plantings on the south. Using planted median zones to help improve pedestrian safety and the environmental and visual qualities of Main Street. And finally, preserving existing street assets wherever possible, including parking, trees, furnishings, and other improvements the community has already invested in. The town's compact center, coupled with the tourism potential that could come from being part of a wider trail network, makes Granby an ideal candidate for bicycle facilities. Our concepts have taken into account the necessities for encouraging bike ridership among residents and visitors. Transportation studies show that confidence among riders grows significantly when dedicated lanes are provided, and that when these lanes are buffered and/or physically separated, the perceived safety of riding more than doubles. And so our concept showed 2 potential approaches, including lanes on Agate Ave or another adjacent street, such as Jasper.
Okay, so now I'm just going to jump in and just sort of talk you through our design concepts, beginning with the first. idea, which is including bike lanes on the north and south sides of Agate Ave. And here we go. So we see the lanes, which could be buffered just around intersections where there would be the vegetated curb extensions with native plants, balanced by planters on the south side, which further reinforce Granby's identity. There would still be space for a parking lane, and new bike parking would be added. And the parking lane could be divvied up for temporary pop-up installations and parklets. And here you see how drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians are coexisting on the street. In concept 2, we show the bike lanes, a bidirectional lane on the south side of the street. So you see the medians not only improve the visual quality of Main Street, but they also provide this really wonderful pedestrian refuge. So no longer do you have to book it across 76 feet of asphalt. Various improvements have been kind of peppered in just to improve the pedestrian experience so that you're getting the shade from the trees, art, and just sort of really other beautiful street enhancements, some of which are already there, so we've tried to include them. And again, a view of what that lane would look like if it were included on Agate. So lastly, in concept 3, we're showing a variety of green infrastructure and other street enhancement interventions, but we are showing what it would look like if the bike lane wasn't included on Agate and was instead on another street, such as Jasper. So again, that pedestrian refuge. In some of the medians, we've included left-hand turn lanes, and others we have not. So that would be a big decision, both the medians and where there would be turn lanes. A parklet would really help out local businesses with providing outdoor seating and be a really fun summertime event thing to see. We've also tried to include different ways to sort of soften parts of the main street where there are large parking lots, which can be kind of intense to walk by as a pedestrian. And there we have it. And then now we're just going to do a quick fly through of the different concepts from above. Concept 2 with a bidirectional bike lane on the south. And lastly, no bike lane on Agate, but still the medians, curb extensions. And thanks so much. I think we're going to open it up for questions and comments.
Anybody has any questions or comments that they would like you guys are making comments? They probably can't hear you, so I can relay them for you.
I have a quick question. So with a lot of those concepts, it looked like there was one lane for cars on one side and 2 lanes on the other. Why is there a desire to have 2 lanes going either direction? Why would we want? Why not just have 1 lane in each direction? Why not just keep it 1 lane in town and then open?
Jeff, did you guys hear that?
We're talking about why we have 2 lanes, one direction and 1 lane the other.
Yep.
I believe that was, if I recall correctly, that was in part a CDOT recommendation, and it was also intended to make life easier for residents of Granby, given the fact that most people live on the north side of the highway and it's an easier turn for them to get in the flow of traffic without so having 2 lanes that direction. Oh boy, I'm not sure. The math was is a little foggy to me, but it basically was to give those folks access to more traffic lanes to move about, whereas on the south side there's not as much residents and hence not as much traffic getting on the road. Ted, is that kind of your recollection as well?
Yeah, my understanding was that it came back a lot to the CDOT as well for their recommendations. I think what they saw from their traffic counts is, especially during the summertime, most people are coming in and through town at approximately the same time throughout the evening, whereas when they're leaving town, it's much more of a staggered approach. When they're leaving to go back to the Front Range, it's much more staggered, but we didn't see that on Monday this week. So yeah, I think that there was some CDOT recommendations there.
And I think it was really geared towards giving the folks that live there a little bit more traffic flow on that side of the street, so that they're not as impacted by the people that are just passing through town. I think at the beginning of the process, at least a year ago when we met, the overwhelming sentiment was to go 1 lane both directions, but CDOT sort of counseled against that. That's not necessarily to say the answer is no, but my take, when CDOT says something, we probably want to try to play ball with them if we can.
It's a different stretch of the highway, I guess is probably what CDOT would say. It's certainly a question that we can try to reach out to CDOT and get some answers on. Tim Gagnon was the one that worked through that for us. So.
And I have a question. One option where we push the bike from Jasper. Since a lot of those streets off the north south without a stop sign, how will we change those intersections make it safer for bikers to be able to number of intersections where they would not have the right way?
Sure, just probably, I mean, we'd obviously have to have some conversations with Jim and have some conversations with the engineers as well, but if there's certain ways to.
Before they stop, maybe that cuts off the full cut from 34, or stop more. At least an idea. I think that the bikers, especially with the hills and faster traffic, that would be a challenge for younger, lower bikers to come through on transportation.
Yeah, I think that the overwhelming conversations that we had internally about this was, we wanted to present the Jasper option, but from an economic perspective, we think that it's important to have the bikers on highway, if possible in a safe way.
We addressed it briefly last time on option 3, where we have to dedicate a separated bike lane. I agree, it's the safety. How does that work for we have the road, because now we have bikers who normally follow traffic rules, but now they're particularly when they're turning and so forth. Did that plan get fleshed out to kind of address that problem?
Can one of you guys speak to that with the separated bike lanes and how, how they would, make turns or anything like that? Does that design take that into account?
Sure. So there's a lot of variations in ways that you can handle traffic safety. So for instance, in our models, we showed all of the bike lanes being green, mostly just to show, have them stand out visually to present to you today. But some of the ways you can do that is to just include painting those lanes right at the intersections, or like how we did in the model, having the bollards stretch out around the intersections to provide additional measures of safety. And another thing that we showed, but these little things they can be hard to see, but you can have like little raised concrete areas just around the intersection turns, just to support people in the left turn lane. So there's just a lot of different sort of physical barriers and like visual cues that you can give. Additional signage, things that tell cyclists, must stop at light, or things like that. So it would really just be about sort of what the town wanted visually, but then also what was most practical for safety purposes and traffic on Agate.
Did we answer that question, Ted? Because I couldn't hear the question, so I'm not sure we got the nuances. Did we get close?
I don't want to speak for Natasha, but I feel like maybe the question was more geared towards if somebody, if it was a 2-lane on the south side for the bikes, how would a bicyclist safely turn left to say go up Mesa or go up Zero Street? Would that just be about signage?
They'd probably have to utilize the crosswalk, I would guess, you know, at that point, because I mean that's one of the dilemmas. There was no way to do like a flyover or anything like that for the bikes, so they're going to have to adhere to either become like a car and get in a left turn lane and turn like a car would do it, or if they get off their bike and walk across the street. It's not ideal, but nothing really. That's one of the other reasons why, you know, putting it on a less crowded street like Jasper has some advantages, because people can come and, you know, on bikes can travel more or less as they wish. With that said, we wanted to have the bikes be kind of an economic generator to the downtown district as well. So I again don't know if we answered the question, but we're going to give Elena a chance next time.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's definitely going to be about proper signage, and we certainly would be the first that would have bike lanes. So there's, you know, examples out there that, you know, if we get to that step of moving forward with the project, you know, that's something that would be in engineer drawings. Is these are the 10,000 signs that we have to, well, not 10,000, hopefully. These are the 100 signs that we're going to need to get made, and this is what our traffic engineer says about that section of it.
So a solid, an option 3 of a solid barrier for the bike trail. Is there the parking on that side of the street, or you lose all that parking?
No, so your parking would be next to the barrier on the other side of the bikes. Yep. So because Highway 40 is so wide, there's plenty of room to do parking, 2 lanes, median, 1 lane parking, plus bikes. The medians aren't terribly wide, but enough to have some plantings in them. And then the wider sections have some trees.
Are lanes kind of a universal size, or do you have wide lanes and narrow lanes? We have a lot of RV traffic. I'm wondering if the lanes kind of like oversized, extra wide.
That really wouldn't be a question that I would be able to answer. Do you know, Doctor?
I do know that to increase, there's different size lanes, but they're within a regulation as set forth by CDOT. And if you remember when a couple of years back, we increased the size of the parking lane by decreasing each lane size. And so there was some room within that, but there is within that, there's a standard you can't go on. So, I just want to make sure that we have plenty of room for RVs, and we know that's part of that.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, Deb's taking notes, so we get all your questions, so that we can compile that into a larger document.
I have a question that can bring it up to the commission. As so many of our cyclists are part of that trans document of like this. So people like those. They tend to go at 125, but a lot of bikers come in with that. The overnight lodging, food. That is a big tourism at Granby. So I don't know if you want to work with the commissioners, how also maybe extend that piece so that we are on the map, hopefully, maybe from a chamber standpoint, make the connection and get it inside their online guidebook. That's a heavily traffic trail, and it would probably be prudent for us to take advantage of that, because we really are less than a 2-mile detour for those people. Normally, they would then be heading up 125. So it takes them from Washington, D.C. out to the West Coast or to Oregon.
It was in the first section of Elena's slides, is that there was a blue line there that went up to Hot Sulphur, that, you know, if we could make that connection at some point and get the county on board, get CDOT on board, we feel as though the bike traffic could be, you know, a really important thing for. Steve, did you have a question?
Oh, I was just,
Can you come up so you can get picked up on the mic, Steve?
Sure. I'm Steve Reeder, and speaking both as a motorist and a cyclist, I just thought of an example that I did a project in Encinitas, California, which has a lot more traffic, a lot more, but they had a similar situation where they had, on Highway 101, they have a 4-lane and diagonal car parking. And as a cyclist, you're always concerned about motorists and car doors and pedestrians. And just from what I heard this evening, I think it would be best if you push the cyclist traffic to Jasper or south of the tracks, made a paved bike lane south of the tracks, because in Encinitas, where the example I was giving, they had 4 lanes, and then they had the outside lanes were shared lanes where you cars and cyclists, but cyclists have the right of way. But all the traffic was, I mean, all the cyclists would go into 2nd Street, which is the same as Jasper, just because it's safer. And to Natasha's point about, you know, cyclists, you know, don't like to slow down, so they're blowing through stop signs. So I don't know if that's something you have to consider. But my thoughts were just comparing what you're thinking about here with the town of Encinitas. If you concentrated on automobiles and parking and pedestrian and slowing down the traffic and push the cyclists to Jasper or south of the tracks, would be the safest option for cyclists. Okay.
Can I, hey, Ted,
As far as cycling in the county or cycling in town, if I'm riding my bike, I ride Jasper, I ride Railroad, I ride whatever county road is across the tracks. And then going out of town, Meadow is a better option than Highway 40. I know it's not, I know it's in a county, but that's an option too. I do have a question of why there would be a consideration of taking away a traffic lane when traffic continues to increase. And if you were out here on this past weekend, you saw the traffic. Even if you're a local, I agree, if getting across, you know, it's okay, 2 lanes on the north side of the highway, but if you want to go east, there's just a solid line of traffic, and really there's no options without going down and turning down on, you know, making a U-E or something on some of those streets. So I do have a question, why even consider losing a lane of traffic when the traffic continues to increase? And in regards to the bikers, is there really that much economic, you know, offshore economic benefit to having more bikers in town, when if you could reroute them around town, if they want to stop, if they're hungry, they'll stop. I don't know that by putting bike lanes in town are going to make a huge difference from that standpoint. And then I also question the examples that were provided for other towns. Those streets that were presented aren't the same as Highway 40 through town. Those are, like Buena Vista is a side street. It's not Highway 24. Newcastle is US 6 off Highway 7. Salida already has a downtown area, and that's not US 50 that's going through Salida. That's Carl 291. So I just have some concerns that, considering all these improvements, losing traffic lanes, is there an economic benefit to having more bike lanes? And then that being said, I'm all for calming traffic to make it safer for pedestrians to cross and such. So just some observations. Yeah, you see what they did in Fraser. I don't think Fraser has the traffic that we have here in Granby. You see what they did in Winter Park. You see those little bulbs out they put in on either side of Empire. Does that calm traffic going into town? I don't know, but I like the idea of calming the traffic. So from a pedestrian standpoint. Yeah. Thanks, Ed.
I have one comment about the bike traffic on Jasper. We already have 4-way stops from cars all the way to 4. themselves, but nobody always stops there. So when you're thinking about that, because every bit of traffic that was not on Agate this weekend was shooting over to Jasper, and they were going to fight that. So there are four-way stops all the way up to Trail, the Pearl Dragon. That whole section, we fought for one four-way stop and we got the whole road.
So the intersection over here is the first one without a four-way.
Yes, and once you cross over, there's four ways all the way down to the right. I'm just saying, you can put bicycles there, but I see the teenage kids and a lot of people when they're trying to avoid the traffic on Agate, they come on to Jasper.
Or they come in the alley.
Or yeah, the alley's gotten really busy lately, but just, yeah, just because I've lived there for 30 years and watched it come and go. But there is four-way stop signs already in Jasper.
Steamboat just the same thing. Main Street. They have to go over by the river. That's where they're biking. So they're not on Main Street.
Sure.
Because there's just not enough parking and it's 2 lanes.
So at the beginning of the presentation, you would have seen the one option of Jasper and then putting bike lanes on the north-south streets as well to get them down to Agate. We did talk quite a bit about running it down by Kaibab and around. Our concern with that was one of the options that was shown, but our concern with that was it would have to probably be constructed quite a bit better, obviously, and then B was the railroad as well. Would we have to put some sort of arm system in or something along those lines? Those are just questions that we don't have answers to at this time. They're all options. It's just, what would be the best fit. To talk to your questions, Frank, one of the things that came up, I believe last year when you guys were kind of going through this, I wasn't here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but was wanting to get some sort of dedicated lane for bicyclists. And then I believe, Jeff, as far as the number of lanes go, that was also a recommendation from CDOT, was to reduce lanes to help slow the traffic.
Yeah, let me speak to a few things because I think that starting a few questions ago, I think traffic lanes can vary between 10 and 12 feet as sort of standard approved by CDOT. And their statistics sort of indicate that the narrower the lanes, the more the traffic has to slow down. It's counterintuitive to me to make lanes narrower because I agree we have some larger vehicles that go through Granby and whatnot. And so I just take that at face value that I think our lanes might be 10 or 11 feet wide. They weren't like the freeway width of 12 feet, but I believe that was sort of their recommendation. The other thing, for better or worse, when it's a traffic jam going through town, we can all agree that traffic is going slower then. So mission accomplished, I guess. And that is one of the overriding principles, was to try to make Granby more of a pedestrian friendly community and not make it a highway friendly community. And so elimination of lanes does increase the traffic. If we are looking, if you're I'll give you an example. I'm a homeowner in Grand Lake, and I drive through Granby not every weekend, but 40 weekends a year. And I don't love traffic either, but I think in some sense, it's just one of the strategies. And the freeway counts from CDOT in Granby, there was less traffic in Granby than there was in Empire. And Empire has has one lane each direction. Now, I've sat in huge traffic jams in Empire and have not liked it, so I don't know. None of these solutions are perfect. They're just they're just methodologies, and we're trying to weigh, you know, different things. There may not be a good reason to have the bike lane in downtown. I think that was fueled in part by the fact that the advent of the campground, the River Run facility, was hopefully going to bring a lot of people with bikes into the area. And so we wanted to have a way to bring those people into town quickly, easily, and conveniently. And so that was one of the driving impetuses. I will shut up now, but.
I do have a couple comments. I don't necessarily know if we get bike traffic to put in various bike lanes. If they need the field of greens done and if the building, they will come and have that available and we'll get more traffic. My concern is a number of concerns. If we do get rid of lanes, it is going to be harder for individuals to get out and get their daily business done. So we're going to have to rely on more traffic signals at all our intersections in order to get collected. I think that what's the cost associated. We also have a large truck traffic that's coming through town. You know, we have more RVs that are getting bigger and bigger. We also need to take into consideration our first responders and make sure they can do business accordingly. We do need to slow traffic down, and I'm not necessarily this, we're moving a lane. Or at more cost, I guess. It's going to cost us a lot of money to put up a light at each and every intersection. That's going to be something that's going to play out.
So as far
You're right. Traffic lights are very expensive. Certainly need the first responders in mind for this sort of thing. You know, obviously, this is so preliminary that we haven't had those conversations. But this, you know, I think as far as traffic lights go, you probably need to expand the vision outside of what's in here a little bit. Really engaging CDOT to try to understand what the plan is for 34 and 40. Is that traffic signal? Is that a roundabout? I've heard a lot of different things. Who knows if there's any truth in it. And then also on the other side, you know, is a traffic signal appropriate at the entrance to kind of that water plant? And yeah, they are certainly expensive things.
I do really like the medium idea that does do a more downtown gateway community and less of a 4-lane highway run through the heart of our city. So I do like that. I do like it.
But then you use suicide. But just thinking about it, a lot of people go to suicide lanes all through town. I think they're right. I think I agree with you, Doc, that it does make it feel downtown. But we do have some offenders who just stay in that middle lane.
And you know, I do want to say that, you know, any sort of build out on something like this, it's a multi-year thing. And so you don't have to choose the one thing. You know, you could say, okay, let's do medians and see how that works for a few years and talk about the other lanes or whatever that might be. You know, this, again, it's going to be something that needs to involve CDOT a lot more on, DOLA a lot more on, and figure out what sort of funding there would be available for us, because obviously we can't, town can't put the entire bill for something. Sorry,
Hello, Hopper Becker. Just wanted to make a few comments. I spend a majority of my work day driving back and forth through town on Highway 40. It's every year traffic gets worse. In fact, I think that the chamber should probably think about rebranding Granby's logo as #no left turn, because you can't make left turns anymore. It's nearly impossible. A lot of my driving involves large pieces of equipment. And thinking about reducing lane sizes or taking away a lane, a lot of this stuff's really slow. Like, you know, it takes a while to merge in. You can't just dart in like a little Subaru, because I also have a little Subaru, nice and zippy. But, you know, when I've got my Super Duty and I'm towing a trailer, and sometimes my stuff is, you know, wider than, you know, a normal load. It's not oversized, but it's wide. There's a lot of times I'll spend 5-6 minutes with my turn signal on watching the line behind me build up, because I can't make a left turn because the traffic is too solid. So when I hear a single lane, yes, it will slow it down, but then I'm going to spend a ton of time waiting to merge places. I really hate the idea of making it not a traffic friendly town, because in my opinion, Granby's in the middle of kind of everything. So it's a hub. Things are going in and out and back and forth and through and around. I understand you want to make it pedestrian friendly. I get that. But at the same time, you know, my livelihood revolves around moving back and forth, amongst other things. So that suicide lane, for, you know, all intents and purposes, it gets used a lot by me and by other people with large pieces of equipment, because without it, you can't get anywhere. And so medians, you know, that sounds like also a bad idea. Granted, this is just, you know, the first time I'm kind of seeing this and hearing about this. So sometimes new ideas are a little less exciting than they are after you've thought about them for a while. But the biggest thing I think I'm concerned about is removing traffic lanes or making them smaller. Additionally, you know, as far as underground utilities go, there's a sewer main that runs in the eastbound lane right down the middle. So, you know, every 2-3 years we have to shut down, the sewer department has to shut down the highway to clean. It hasn't been an issue because you still have a lane open. So if there's a single lane, well, guess what? We're shutting down the highway for a whole day to do our cleaning operations because it's one lane, and that's where the sewer main is. And that doesn't sound very appealing. It's doable, but I don't think that's something that would be exciting to anybody. I really like the idea of a bike lane on Jasper. As a former bicyclist, I used to ride a bike a lot, but not anymore. I think that I hate riding near highways because they're busy and dangerous. So Jasper, you know, or anywhere up in there seems like a low impact, fairly safe option. I think that's a great idea. But yeah, I think with every year, you know, we see an increase in traffic. And I would assume that this traffic study data that you guys are going off of is a couple years old. For those of you who don't know, I work at the sewer plant here in Granby. And what we see every single year is we beat records for flow, which shows that there's more people in town, there's more use. So I can't rely off of 2-year-old data for anything, because that 2-year-old data is, you know, way lower than we're operating at now. So those are just a few things that are running through my head initially. I do plan to stay fairly involved with this discussion moving forward. This is my town. I love it. I love the people here. I want to make it great for everybody. I also pay taxes here, so I feel like I have a vested interest. But yeah, I think that there's a lot of great ideas out there, and for what it's worth, those are just my opinions. So thank you.
So there would still be a turn lane on the south lane, the eastbound lane. There would still be a turn lane. The median there would just shrink, so that way you could turn into that and then do your left turn. So that would be where the suicide lane is currently. As far as the sewer main that goes down there, that's something that, you know, these guys wouldn't have taken into account. So we can certainly, as we move forward with it, that's utilities is obviously a big piece to the puzzle.
The two lanes stay. Maybe coming in that one lane in each direction, so it's a two, and it's one. I think it's most relevant on the eastbound side, right before the bridge. That tends to get a little better. People find roads back in the single. But if one were to be
At 6th
I would
Street.
hope that that could be addressed more effectively than it currently was.
You mean where the pass through the left turn lane of the 50?
Yeah.
Right by the chamber, 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Sure.
A quick question, if that's okay. Hi, just a quick question in terms of bulb outs and in terms of physical bulb outs, not painted bulb outs. Has the recent ADA work done on Highway 40, has that created a no-touch zone for bulb outs for a period of time?
That's something that we still have to get clarified with CDOT. They're the ones you know, the bulb outs they're good for a parking side, but they're not great for a snow side. So we left them in the presentation so that you could see what they look like, but I don't know that those frames are touchable.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You have some questions?
Final question for me, when you first started presentation by BI-DIRECTIONAL, one of the options is the crosswalk be more visible by using different material like brick to make it more obvious. I didn't notice that was still part of this presentation.
I think they talked a little bit about some of those options. So those options would be instead of a paint, you use like, I've seen them with like a reflective sticker basically that they're kind of ground down a little bit and use. You can use different colored paving, things of that nature. You can also use raised intersections are actually, so like kind of a longer speed bump basically that catches your eye and slows traffic down pretty well. I went through this process in North Sioux before I came, and that was one of the options that they had come up with, or our traffic engineers had come up with, was we should do the raised intersections as a line of sight issue. So
There's got the flag, but I don't think it's ideal with cross 40. The island would make it better in the middle, but I would love to see a better solution to make those crosswalks more visible.
Sure.
One splinter in Golden. Golden
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Golden uses the raised
Oh.
crosswalks, and it really slows. They have them right at the beginning of South Golden Road, and they have one right in front of the high school, and then they have another one. It really slows everything down. You put one of those going as fast as you, and you're going to take it.
Yeah, it's definitely a line of sight issue, and do that, you don't want to hurt your car yourself. But yeah, that would be something that we certainly take into account. But there's a lot of different ways to allow for safer pedestrian crossings. Anything else at all?
Yes, I just have one last comment. It seems that there's a lot of Christy delay. It seems that there's a lot of focus being put on bicycles when that's really a very limited season up here. I mean, it's September and it's snowing. So I think if I had a preference, I would rather see more emphasis on pedestrian safety and less focus on bicycles that really is so seasonal. I think there are safe ways that we could get bikers in from River Run using Meadow and other side streets without dedicating a big chunk of our highway to that one single use.
Anything else that you have questions for these guys on the Zoom or me? Or Lauren's here too. No? Cool. Done in an hour. So, all right, guys. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you all.
You guys Thanks for the comments, and we'll get back with you next week, Ted, or
Okay.
soon. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.